was for me. Now, the title of my sermon is Finding Our Way. And I gave a lot of thought to this because I'm going to tell you a secret. I was born in 1949, and no, there weren't dinosaurs then. They weren't there. But I know some of you haven't even been born yet. But one of the things that I was thinking about is, because I grew up in the 50s and the 60s. The 60s, changes were taking place. You had the Vietnam War. You had the feminist movement. You had riots in the streets. And there was a drug culture, the hippies, the flower children. And these are things that I was seeing. But in the 50s, I was not a teenager. I was a kid. And I was thinking, how had things changed? Because I look at today with the technology they have. Back in my day, we didn't have phones, iPhones. We did not have iPads. We did not have the internet. But we did have black and white TV. Of course, that changed in the 60s. And so my question is, what did you do? What did we do? Now, one of the things that I remember is, what kind of organizations did we have? What was available to us? And I'll begin with the Brownies and Girl Scouts. These were great organizations because you were taught many things. You were taught crafts. You were taught respect for people and how to, like for the girls, they sold cookies too, but it was more. But how to prepare for life. It was a good base. And then you had the Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts. And that is something that I was part of. This one photo I found of this Cub Scout really kind of took me back because it resembles my younger brother. I mean, you could say, yeah, that's him. But what was so good about the Cub Scouts where I started is you learned things, you learned crafts, you learned respect, you learned about God. These were good things. But the most important thing was socialization. Because you had to interact with kids, because you didn't have the distractions of technology. I mean, I can remember an incident with my grandson, and I got into his face about it. We were all in one room. He's standing there next to his friend. What are they doing? They're texting one another. I said, you don't have vocal cords? What's going on here? I mean, it just was kind of really took me back. Because I remember days, kids would get together with the cousins and this and that, and it was pandemonium. We didn't have that kind of stuff, so we did have to interact, and it was great. It was a lot of fun. Did we get in trouble? Of course we did, but it was still fun. Now, the Boy Scouts was something I really enjoyed because they do things a little differently. Granted, you can see with the badges and all that stuff. Well, what was the primary thing? Because during the summer we would have a Jubilee, which was a camping session, and there were 300 of us there, living in tents, learning skills. But what were the skills that we were learning? Survival skills. Like, have you ever lost in the woods or something of that nature? First aid was taught. How to deal with a broken leg, how to deal with a sprained ankle, how to build shelters, what you could eat out of the woods and what you could not eat. These were great things. It kind of reminds me of the church's youth camps because they're doing the same things, the canoeing, the archery, and learning skills. But that was something that I started thinking about. And what was my favorite thing? We had a course that had to do with mapping and a compass. I loved that because we had a starting point and you had a destination. And you had to read from a map and use that compass to get there. But along the way, what was good? Well, along the way, they taught us how to do a way marker. Like you'd pass a tree, tie something to it or use your knife and make a mark. The secret to that was when you looked at that knot, that was the direction you were going. And it was quite interesting to learn that because you'd have a starting point, and let's say you're facing north, which is 360 degrees. Okay, you start at 270 degrees, which is west. But we were taught how to use the degree. And you know, if you had like a clear view, in the distance you would have a marker. Okay, I'm headed that way. But you would check your compass as you went because you could drift off course. Yes, you still see it, but you're not at 270 degrees anymore. You're at like 265. And we were taught, how do you get back on course? It was one of the greatest things that I experienced. I still remember it today. Yes, I know there's apps out there for GPS, there's hike trackers and things like that. Do I use them? Yes, I do. But every now and then I'll pull out my compass and do it without those apps. Totally different. Because those that have only been on the apps, you put a compass in their hand, they don't know what to do with it. Oh, I see north, south, east, west, but what are all these numbers? You know, how do I get started? And matter of fact, how do I match it to a map? I've got this map in my hand that says, you are here, this is where you're to go. Now get there. See, you can't do that anymore unless you have, you know, the GPS. But the only thing about that, when your battery runs out of power, what are you going to do? You're lost. But I looked at this and I started thinking about a lot of things because a compass is an instrument for determining direction, as by means of a freely rotating magnetic needle that indicates the magnetic north. I kind of thought about that because I know there's indication in the Bibles, I do believe Isaiah 14, where God is in the north. And I find that interesting. Oh, so this compass always points to the north. That's an interesting thing. So I'm kind of looking at this as a spiritual compass. Because we do have a compass in our life, both physically and spiritual, because you set directions in your life. You know, you say, because I look at Joshua, he's getting ready to attend college. He is going to set a direction in that college for his life, their livelihood, his income, and his intellectual pursuits. So you're basically using a physical compass to go, I'm going this way. This is where I'm headed. Now, spiritual compass is quite interesting, you know, because I thought about it. Because in Psalms 43:3, it states, send out your light and your truth. Let them guide me. Let them lead me to your holy mountain, to the place where you live. Well, how do I get there? I need something to point me in the right direction, because when you think about your life before God, what was it? You set your own directions. You went this way, you went that way. You didn't know, you're thinking, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I'm going in the right way. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. But you can also get off course and get into things that are not right. So in the beginning there, because I can remember, I think most of us can, when we were introduced to God, or he introduced himself to us, that things changed. You started seeing things for what they are. If I go this way, I'm okay. I'm on course. I'm doing the right thing. But now you can get off course, can't you? You can decide, I think I'm going to take this little side trip. Well, a little side trip can be dangerous. It could lead you away from your objective. So there's this compass, because I look at my life and I think, when I do those things, I'm going to go this way for a little bit, that I sense it. My compass, my spiritual compass is saying, you're off course. You're going the wrong way. But if you understand the mechanics of a compass, you can do the math. You can work it out. How do I get back? How many paces do I go this way before I take this turn? That spiritual compass will show you that. And you repent. You get back on course. Because that spiritual compass is saying, go this way, and you will be safe. Get off course, anything can happen to you. And I think that's something that each and every one of us truly understand. And oh my. No, I didn't set my clock, so I won't get in trouble. I hope not. And then in Luke 1, verses 78 and 79, it says, because of God's tender mercy, the morning light from heaven is about to break upon us. Isn't that kind of interesting, that graphic there, in the sense that you start waking up to spiritual truth and you begin to see that light off in the distance there. You got the darkness around you, but that compass, that hand of God is, there's your path. That's where you need to go. Would you have, if you were not interested in God, if you were not pursuing God, would you have that? Could you see that light? What does God say? You're in the darkness. You're not seeing it. But that, the path of peace, where it goes to give light to those who sit in darkness, which we did, in the shadow of death. Now we understand what he means about that, because that's a spiritual death, the shadow of death. But of course, if you're in the great white throne judgment, you have a chance. Yes, I didn't know, I didn't understand. But for us today, to guide us to the path of peace. There's that spiritual compass again, pointing that way, that will take you to a path of peace. And I would have to ask you, what is that peace? That path that you're on, what is that peace? It's your relationship with God. It's how you love him. It's how you obey him. And in that unity with God, what does that bring? Unity equals peace. That unity, God will bring you that peace of mind. You know, even though we have our troubles in this physical world, family problems, employment problems, automobile problems, things that make us unhappy. But yet, that peace of God is within you. You work your way through your problems because of that peace. God will help you through that. But my question would be, do you go to him? Do you ask him for his help? Because if you don't, it may not work out for you. Because I've learned over the years, you're wise if you ask God for help. You're wise to ask him, like if there's a certain material need or something that you need to keep things on the right path. Ask him. He will hear. He does most of the time, but there's times he doesn't because you didn't ask right. But that's that relationship. That's that parental relationship with God. He wants to hear from you. He wants to be part of your life, a major part of your life. And if he is, your spiritual compass is working good. It's doing the right things. In Hebrews 12, 13 and 14, it says, mark out a straight path. And that was one of the things when I go back to my Boy Scout days. How to mark a path. Because if people behind you that can find you. But marking out that path is your life. How dedicated are you? how much do you actually believe? Because if you got a crooked path, it's going to be difficult. And I think most of you know that. So you mark out a straight path for your feet so that those who are weak and lame will not fall, but become strong. And I look at that, well, make a straight path. And then it makes, so those who are weak and lame will not fall. Is that being a proper example? If someone truly knows how you live, and they know what you will do and what you won't do, that's an example. May cause them to think and saying, they live a certain way, or he or she lives a certain way, and they seem to be okay. They don't seem to have the problems that I got. So in that they see strength, and they may approach you on it. Why do you do what you do? Well, it's because I trust God. It's because I believe in God. He tells me how to go. He uses that spiritual compass from within to say, go this way. Practice it. Live it. And the results are that path of peace. I keep thinking of peace. Because I know in the times we're in today, it's not good. It's probably not going to get any better. You know, the times have changed. I mean, I look at, well, been around since the dinosaur age, 1949. I've seen a lot of change. The change is not good, especially in the last 20 years. When 2000 began, things changed. I look at that and say, this isn't the America I grew up in. You know, what happened to the Sandlot baseball games? What happened to the Sandlot football games that we played in the neighborhoods and the basketball? People were civil to one another. Yeah, we may got into our fights every now and then. A little disagreement, get beat up a little bit, but that was it. You know, then there was an apology and everything was fine. It's not that way anymore. You know, and I kind of have an issue with the technology of today, especially social media. Because of what the misinformation, the hatred, and all that gets spread around, it affects people. Especially our children, because I look at them, they're glued to that phone. They're on the social media, and they're doing this and doing that. And us parents don't have a clue what they're doing, what they're thinking, and what they're doing when they're not in our sight. That did not go on in my young days. You couldn't hide. Especially you grow up in a small town, everybody knows you. The parents do too. And you'll get that, hey John, let me tell you what your boy did the other day. You could not get away with nothing. So you had to behave that way, but now it's different. And of course the politics of the world are changing. The level of violence is that level of violence that disturbs me more than anything. Because when you read the Bible, when you get to Noah, just before the flood, what was the problem? It was the level of violence that brought that about. And I go, okay, I hear you. What does our world look like today? The violence, you know, within our own cities. I mean, next week you have that DNC convention. That's going to be messy. You're going to have the protest, but it's all the other things that are going on. The world in general is getting violent. You know, you hear rumors of war. Well, what do you hear? Rumors of war. Are there wars taking place at the moment? The answer is yes. These were warnings that Christ was giving in Matthew 24. So now you sit there and think, how do I find my way through this? How do I know what direction to go so I'll be okay? It's that spiritual compass that God's pointing that way. This is the privilege you have, because you have God's Holy Spirit. And you know, if it wasn't for him, you wouldn't be able to deal with this. You wouldn't. You know, I see people getting caught up. They don't know what to think. They don't know what to do. Oh, the world's coming to the end, and on and on and on. But you know the direction. You're on that path of understanding because you know how it ends. And that we also have the promises of God to protect us. I truly believe he will. Might get a little scary at times, you know, because I think about the children of Israel at the Red Sea. They were trapped. You know, like I said, if I were there, I'd say, I'm going to die today. Well, what did God say? No one's going to die today. None of you. So we kind of find ourselves in that same situation with a changing world. And a little scary. Because I'll be honest with you, we live a comfortable life. We have air-conditioned homes, you know, we have plenty of food and, you know, electricity and all that kind of stuff. Well, what would happen just in one thing? If the power goes off, maybe off for a long time, well, what happens to your iPhones? What happens to your iPads? Now you got to learn how to deal with one another. That may be interesting. Because continuing on in Hebrews 12, 13, 14, what does God say? What's this compass? He says, work at living in peace with everyone and work at living a holy life. For those who are not holy will not see the Lord. You see him because you're doing everything to have peace with everyone. I know there's some that you can't, and living a holy life, because I work with the public. I work for a local government, and sometimes it's difficult. People are getting angry, impatient, short-tempered. How do you live in peace with everyone under those circumstances? My only solution, what I do, I just simply walk away. Can't engage in that. Because if I engage in it too long, I'm going to do the same thing. So it's just walk away. I'll talk to you later when you calm down. A lot of times I find myself in a situation, contractor or subcontractor, they're in my face. I'll just fold my arms, let them talk until they can't talk anymore. They vented completely. Then I'll ask them the question, how can I help you? And most of the time that works. But there are times that just, no. And that's where it makes it difficult. But then in Hebrews 12, verse 15, it states, look after each other so that none of you fail to receive the grace of God. Watch out that no poisonous root of bitterness grows up to trouble you, corrupting many. Now that's something we have to be aware of here in the church, because problems like that can arise. You'll get a division, hurts people, splits the congregation, and there's some that get to a level of bitterness, they walk away and never come back. You don't want that. I would not want to stand before God and have him saying, your attitude caused these people to leave. I was working with them. They were happy. But your attitude created a real problem. That's something we have to be careful about. And, you know, it's also something that we should practice out in the world where we work, especially in our workplace. Have those good relationships. Don't get caught up, because I know you'll get an upset employee and he's going to stir it up. Try to divide everybody. Take this side or take it. Stay away from that. You know, sometimes it's hard to just stand there and shut your mouth, but it's a wise thing to do. Don't get caught up in it. So always watch out for that in any situation, but especially here in the church. That's not for us. We need to stay away from it, because I know there's a procedure in the Bible where it talks about go to your brethren first. If not, then take it and so forth, then turn it completely over to church. That's what should be done, instead of just taking it on yourself for your own self and create this problem. You'll answer for it. Okay, keep that in the back of your mind. That, there's another statement that Christ made that's I live with, and I'm scared of it. Where they said, Lord, Lord, did we not do this for you? And Christ looked at them and said, I never knew you. How frightening is that? I just cringe at that. It scares me. No, I'll be honest with you, because when that time comes and resurrected, you're before Christ, and he says, I never knew you. Why? I did this, I did that, I served, I was kind to people. But Christ said, you didn't listen to me. You didn't obey me. You didn't love me. I never knew you. Scary thought. Come back to that spiritual compass. Stay on that right path. Do what you're supposed to do. But you want to do more than the minimal. You want to go beyond that. Really let your love blossom for Christ. Do the things he asks you. But it's more than just going through the motions. That's an easy thing to do. Okay, we at work, we can do this. Okay, I'll do the minimal. I'm fine. I got a job. I'll get paid. When it comes to Christ, your love and your relationship with him, take it beyond the minimum. Go for that max. You'll be happy that you did, because you will know him in a deeper sense. And then when that time comes, when you're before Christ, he'll go, yes, I know you. That's the words you want to hear. That's what I want to hear. Well done, faithful servant. Enter into. That is fantastic. Really, it's just things, it's amazing that Boy Scout experience and my love for learning how to map and compass would lead to all of this. That's the way God works. Stay on the path. If you get off the path, you know how to get back. Make sure you do it. That's what I love. And then in John 14, verses 5 and 6, this is with Thomas. He says, no, we don't know, Lord. Thomas said, we have no idea where you are going, so how can we know the way? Finding your way. And Jesus told him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one can come to the Father except through me. You hear these things, where they try to bypass Christ. I've heard it from friends and other people. Well, I don't have to do that. I live a good life. I'm nice to people and so forth, and I don't need to go to church. I can do it on my own. And the question is, how are you doing it? Do you even pray? And if you do, who are you praying to? There's only one way. We know that. We understand that. Try to explain that to some people, saying, look, you can't just sit here and accept Christ in name. It's more than that. Because what did he say? He said, if you love me, keep my commandments. Oh, well, what are the commandments? Well, you can start with the 10. That may give you an idea. But then there's going to be other things that are going to come along. Yes, okay, the Sabbath, okay, well, I can only do that every now and then because, I'm a baseball coach and that kind of stuff, so whenever. You can't do that. Christ said you will be here in assembly. And then you come along and you learn about the holy days. One of the most fascinating things about the holy days, it teaches God's plan. It tells you what it is all about. That big compass saying, that is the way to go, and I will teach you, and I will reveal secrets to you. Is that not true? Because a lot of people say, oh no, every now and then at work, there's 2 or 3 of us that eat in the kitchen. And one individual thinks they know it all. A preacher. Well, normally I just kind of kept reading the news, kept eating my lunch, saying, I'm not going to get involved in this. One day I lost it. I lost my composure. Because she started talking about going to heaven. And I looked in it about someone recently died, and I lost it. I was kind of ashamed of myself. Because I looked at her and I said, he's dead. He's not alive. And then I explained, to him that in Ecclesiastes it says the dead know nothing. And then I started explaining the resurrections to her. She didn't have a clue what the resurrections was. And I looked at her and I said, tell me, show me in the scripture where whatever you do up there in heaven, I don't have a clue. How do you get from here to a resurrection? I said, I want you to show me that in scripture. And got a little heated, but she was kind of taken back. And there was another individual there just eating their lunch, eyes are wide, going, uh-oh, what's going on here? Is there going to be a fight? But I finally apologized. I said, I don't normally lose my temper like this, but I want you to do something. I want you to read Revelation 20, think about those resurrections and what it's saying, and then work backwards from there. We're still on good terms, but I haven't heard anything back. So we'll see what happens there. And I don't know what to think about that. I normally don't lose my temper like that, but I just couldn't do it anymore. Because you're teaching a mistruth. How do you answer these questions? And she said, well, there's a spirit going to heaven. That's the way I said, that's true. It's an essence, it's who you are, but it returns to God, but yet it's unconscious. I said, can't you understand that essence has to have a body? It has to have a body, because what did it say in James? A body without a spirit is dead. And it goes right hand in hand what the future is. When you're resurrected, and let's say the first resurrection, what do you have? You have a new body. And it's you. You're experiencing things like that, but the point is, it has to have a body. That was kind of way over, but we'll see what happens. You never know. She may really think about it. And then in John 14, I read that. Let's go to John 10, verse 9. And Christ answered back, he says, yes, I am the gate. Those who come in through me will be saved. They will come and go freely and will find good pastures. Now I thought about that. And I was thinking, a gate. I know we all know what a gate is, but being in the military, there's gates that are gates. You're not getting through. And so, I'm going, okay, every gate has a key, does it not? So Christ is the key to this gate. So, Jeffrey, you got a decision to make. The needle's pointing to the gate, but you can't go through yet. So you have a decision to make. Are you going to commit yourself to Christ? And if you do, I would like to go to Matthew 7, verses 13 and 14. It says, you can enter God's kingdom only through the narrow gate. The highway to hell is broad. How well do we know and understand that? When we see people, our families and everything, that are not in God's church, that they're on these roads. I look at this social media thing. I look at this addiction to the current technology. They have no knowledge of God. Probably don't want to. That technology, in my opinion, is that road to hell. It's dark. And hopefully, I don't know what will happen, but. And it says, and its gate is wide, broad, talking about the broad road, is wide for many who choose to go that way. It's like what William was talking about. Are you willing to give that up? The phone? Are you? Because there are some things you do. But then it says, but the gateway to life is very narrow, and the road is difficult. Only a few ever find it. Well, don't you think if you're on that difficult road, a compass might come in handy? Maybe even a map saying, okay, I'm here, and I go so far, and all of a sudden things look a little difficult. But what I'm trying to get to here with these graphics is, you're facing that closed gate, okay? You have that decision to make. And if you do it right, the gate opens. Isn't that a beautiful analogy? Knowing, when you began your spiritual life, you approached the gate even though it was closed, and then it opens. You're on that path. And I know it means a lot to me because having lived it, starting in the Jurassic age, coming through to present time, and that's the beauty of living. Because as you grow older, you gain experiences. You gain knowledge. You would say, because I've said it myself, if I could go back in time with the wisdom I have today, there are things I would change. Do you not say the same thing? I would go a different way. And I've always asked myself the question, how do you pass this knowledge down? Whoever you're talking to, your kids, grandkids, will they listen? Because you will tell them, if you make this decision, you're going to have these problems. But if you go this way, things will be a lot better. It's like with Joshua. He's getting ready to start a college education. You can do well, and you can do the wrong things, which aren't going to do you any good at all. Not to mention the influences and all that stuff, because he's kind of independent out on his own now, and oh boy, I can do what I want. Mom and Dad will never know about it. Be careful with that. They may, because they pay the bill. But the beauty of that, the lessons you have learned in life, the do's and don'ts. And when you're resurrected, you have that knowledge. So those that you will have your jurisdiction over, when you talk to them, you can say, listen to me. I lived that, and I paid the penalty for it. You have a choice. Listen, and things will go well. If you don't listen, I guarantee you, you're going to have troubles and possibly regrets. And sometimes those regrets have consequences, which they remain with you all your physical life. And that is another thing that kids today, they're not taught consequences. They're not. And that's why they don't have any common sense, because consequences and common sense go together. But that's one of those things that bother me, because when I was growing up with my brothers, we were close in age, got into a lot of trouble. And we knew, okay, if we do this, we're going to get in trouble. The belt's going to go across our butt and the whole thing. But we went ahead and did it anyways. And the consequence came true. So, we learned better not do that, even though we want to. Because we know when we walk in that door, Dad's going to be there. So it's a good lesson, the consequences, because you can teach that. Say, don't do that. You know, it kind of reminds me, and it talks about in Isaiah, that voice that's behind you. No, 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 don't do that. Go the other way. Because it's talking about a consequence. Yeah. Yeah, I've had consequences, bad, you know. Before I knew God, there were some bad behaviors in my life. Paid the price. And some of them remain today. A lifelong consequence. I understand it because God has given me that understanding. You know it, you understand it, and you will have it until the day you die. So when I see someone doing something that I already know what the penalty is and the consequence, I will tell them. I said, you're going to hurt yourself. You really are. Listen. Hopefully they will. But going on to Proverbs 12, verse 28, it says, the way of the godly leads to life. That path does not lead to death. Get on the wrong path, go the wrong direction, what's going to happen? Death. You're going to find yourself back in that darkness that you came from. But the problem is you understand doing that is death. Spiritually, it's a spiritual death. But there's a consequence because you're going to answer for it. When you're before Christ and that accountability comes, you'll answer for it. You know, the question is, did you do it willfully or was it by accident? Those that live a godly life know that. Be very, very careful of willful acts that go against God and that you know it. You'll answer for it. It may create a consequence in your life that you will regret. That's the purpose in living a godly life. And of course, the greatest thing of all is God's mercy. Repenting of something that you willfully did. He's there to forgive you, and he actually does. Because I've had moments in my life where I came back to God. I knew what I was doing wrong. And I pleaded for his forgiveness. And then there's a certain presence I begin to sense. It's one of peace. It's exhilarating. And it's only there for so long. Then I'm back to, here I am. But I always know that, and that's the benefit that we have. Take advantage of it. But when you do, be honest about it. Because you may fail one day and say, oh, I did it again. But you keep going back to God. You keep asking for that forgiveness. And I don't know if you have that experience when you know you're forgiven. You feel it. You feel him. That's a beautiful thing, and it's glad to know that. Say, okay, I'm on good ground again. I'm back on course. The compass is right on, so stay with it. And then in John 12, verse 46, it says, I have come as a light to shine in this dark world, so that all who put their trust in me will no longer remain in the dark. That's one of the things I've been talking about is prior to knowing God, prior to committing God, you lived in the dark. I'm not, physically the sun comes up and the sun goes down. We're talking spiritually. You didn't know anything. Because in high school and everything, I was a surfer, and that's all I knew. That's all I wanted to know. Wanted to go pro. Because of my connection with nature, being in the ocean all the time and all that, I thought I knew God. And in that sense, I respected him, but I didn't know him. I was still in darkness. And then after I got out of the service, things changed. God introduced himself to me, and now I understand what the darkness and light is all about. That's what I'm saying. Don't let someone fool you who really doesn't practice their faith. It's just a facade. They're in darkness. Don't let them take you to that, because you're not in darkness. You're in the light. Stay there. Let the blind wander, and they will. But you're not blind. You see. You're in the light. You have spiritual eyes. Nurture that. Nurture it. Cause it to grow, because it's for your own good. And then when that glorious day comes, when you're standing there with Jesus Christ, all I can say is, wow. Because I think about that. You know, as my age, you're kind of in the red zone. You know, okay, my day of death is coming. It could happen at any moment here. That fear of death is gone. It is. Because knowing it would only be but a moment, I will be standing there with Jesus Christ and the rest of the resurrected saints. Question is, do you believe it? Do you? Is there any doubt in your mind that that wouldn't happen? I believe it, 1,000%. It's a day I look forward to. You know, I kind of, well, yeah, Jeff, you know, you may find yourself in a hospital bed and the family's gathered around you, and I'm just going to look at them and smile, say, see you soon. And I'm sure that will drive them crazy. But God will get you to that point, that peace, his peace in knowing I've got to go through this. Hopefully it's quick, and that I don't suffer, because I know what's coming, and I'm going to be there. And that's why you're sitting here today. You have the same vision to be there. And then I'm going to go to, well, did I read verse 12? John 8, verse 12. It said, Jesus spoke to the people once more and said, I am the light of the world. If you follow me, you won't have to walk in darkness, because you have the light that leads to life. And that's basically what I was talking about. And then I want to go to Psalms 18, verse 30, where it says, God's way is perfect. All the Lord's promises prove true. He is a shield for all who look to him for protection. Have any of you experienced that in your life? Do you come to the opinion or knowledge that God's way is perfect? And it is. Because when you live it, it goes well. But then all the Lord's promises prove true. Do you believe his promises? Do you know what his promises are? Because in this physical life, if you do the right thing, there'll be difficult times, there will be good times, but you'll have that peace. But it's that promise, just what I was talking about. The first resurrection, that promise, and protection. And I think every one of us in this room can talk about it, because I should have been dead long ago. Because I was reckless, didn't know how to control my drinking, I'll be honest with you, and out on the road. And I can remember instances where I should have been dead. I should have been wrapped around a palm tree. But that's what I'm saying. I didn't die because God had a purpose for my life. I am going to put you on a path. I am going to put a map and a compass in your hand. Follow it. I've been doing that for 51 years now. Glad I did. Because I think about, Jeff, if you would have died young, not knowing God, what would that be? I wouldn't know about the great white throne judgment. I'll hear him, and all of a sudden he's standing amongst all these people like, what am I here? Why am I here? What's about to happen? I don't have a clue. But God said, I'm going to teach you. I'm going to keep you alive. You're going to experience these things so you can help others in the millennium when that time comes, which is also your fate. That's why you're here. That's why you're learning. That's why you're being trained because of what you'll be doing in the millennium. That goes kind of beyond normal thinking to realize you're going to be a priest and a king. You're going to be ruling with Jesus Christ for 1,000 years. You're going to be responsible for certain amounts of people who will be in your jurisdiction. You're responsible to guide them, to teach them the way of God. You're learning that now. What a gift. What a beautiful thing to know. And God has shown you the way to go to get there. How? I mean, I don't know, I get speechless sometimes, because now I got a next slide here that shows a compass in the Bible. This is my whole point of this whole thing. That compass sets a direction, does it not? Tells you which way to go. But what my question is, when you look over here at the Bible, is that your map? That the map you're supposed to follow? And that spiritual compass will show you which way to go, which path to get on, how to do things right. It's that Boy Scout thing again, because learning that map, how to use that compass. And I look at this slide and go, what can I say? Because the Bible has become my map. The compass shows me when I go off course and how to get back there, because you can do the calculations in the whole thing. So in summary, like I said, with the mapping and compass, you have a point of origin, you're going to a destination, because that's just how it's put together. And the destination is this, Revelation 20, 5 and 6, where it says, "This is the first resurrection. The rest of the dead did not come back to life until the 1,000 years has ended. Blessed and holy are those who share in the first resurrection. For them, the second death has no power. But they will be priests of God and of Christ and will reign with him 1,000 years." That's your destination. If the Bible is your map, and you stay on course with your spiritual compass, you'll be there. So, brethren, I highly encourage you, stay on the right course. Love God and his ways in ways that you can't even imagine. Your future is there waiting for you. Not only that, Jesus Christ is also waiting for you.